Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Innovators. Today's guest is Patrick Tobler from NMKR. That's right, your favorite Cardano NFT project. I'm going to speak to Patrick about AI, agentic blockchain services, and a topic close to my heart, AI agents, with the project Masumi. I hope that you enjoy this and look forward to seeing all your comments. Let's get right to the interview. So, Patrick, thank you so much for being with me today here on Innovators. My first question is going to be pretty simple, right? What sparked your interest in blockchain, and how did that affect your transition from university into building a leading NFT tool on Cardano?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So, when I was really studying computer science and I was getting into blockchain, I was really there just to make money because I looked at Bitcoin and everyone was like, oh, you can make so much money with Bitcoin and so on, like all the hype. But then I started reading more about it and watching videos and learning about it. And I realized, okay, actually, blockchain is a very important technology because it can actually make the world a better place. It can make the world a fairer place because it's one system for everyone around the world. It's not like someone who is poor doesn't have access. It's not like rich people have better access. It's really one system that everyone uses, and I think that was very inspiring to me. So I began really looking into blockchain from that kind of perspective, and then obviously the step from like Bitcoin to Ethereum to Cardano isn't that far off, because Cardano is really one of the very few blockchains that focus on this and focus on making or focus on leveling the playing field, so to speak. And then I studied and I wrote my bachelor thesis about Cardano, and I really got interested. And then I saw what's actually possible there, because it was around the time when the first NFTs and the first tokens on Cardano came out. So I said, okay, let's just do this like small little side project. I didn't even really understand what an NFT is back then. I just built it and I learned by building it. And then I realized, okay, it's actually more than just pictures. It can actually redefine how we view ownership in the 21st century. And I got really interested in the topic. And even right now, like I think NFTs are widely misunderstood because everyone still sees them as like ape pictures, and obviously the bubble has kind of burst. Um, but at its core, it's just technology, and it's just technology representing ownership over something, and that something could be anything, right? And it's freely tradable. It's very unique in its properties, and I think it should be used way more. And I think the world would truly be better if we embraced that a little bit more. So yeah, that's how I got into blockchain, basically.
I have my own interesting little NFT project that I'm working on. It's a real estate. I have a real estate project here in Costa Rica, where the one Airbnb property will have a rotating 365 cycle of NFTs. So there's an NFT for July 1st, 2025. And you can go to a marketplace and you can take that NFT, and that is your night in that Airbnb. That
Nice.
once you get that NFT will give you the ability to use the electronic lock on the property to have access through the gate. Would allow you access with the electronic lock to get into the Airbnb, right? Will give you access to the small library of cool things that are associated with that property and where they are. So here are the directions to the stores. Here are some of the great restaurants in the area. Here are some helpful referral codes that if you go to the restaurant, you can get a discount, those type of things. And so, and all of that has nothing to do with a Bored Ape. There's not one cool pixelated picture in that. It is just basically rights to things.
Yep.
Immutable, undisputable. If you own it, if you have it in your wallet, it's there. And so I too, am really fascinated with NFTs and believe they are going to take a much larger section of the digital asset space in the future than they do today. And I think it's going to be really fun to watch the creative ways that people take these technologies and start applying them to real world utility elements, like my real estate project or somebody's art project or somebody's work project.
Yeah.
Right? It could be I rent myself out per the NFT. So an NFT could give you access to me for A, B, C, D, and E. Choose to use it, choose not to use it. That's okay. The market will decide what it's worth, and bada bing, bada boom. No, right on. Let's go into. I have another really well thought out question. All right. Can you share a defining moment or challenge early in NMKR's journey that shaped your vision for where the company is going today?
So there were a lot of moments like that, to be honest. I think one of the main, like the key moment that really triggered the creation of NMKR, how it is, was we started with just a very simple platform, right? Like a website where you can make one NFT at a time. Like you just go there, upload an image, and you get one NFT. And that was very popular because it was like one of the first times you could actually do something on Cardano. But it was not super interesting looking back. Like there's, thousands of websites like that nowadays for every chain, basically. But then what happened is that actually people came to me and they said, look, we want to launch projects with you. We want to launch 10,000 NFTs and sell them on our own website. And it wasn't only one project, it was two projects actually at the beginning who wanted to do that almost at the same time. So I was thinking, okay, how do we do this? Do we just, make a simple like script for this? Do we just code something together for them? But then actually instead we focused on building a tool that we can use internally to help launch those projects, but also we can open it up to everyone else and they can just go to the tool and launch themselves. And that was like one of the guys said it would be like AWS for minting, basically. Yeah. And that was really interesting to me because I didn't really see it as that big of a business back then. But then, we released the tool and then it took like a month for everyone to understand it. And then it just started going and we just launched so many NFTs like all the time. And I think that was really, what set us off into this direction. I think if this wouldn't have happened, we would have just built an NFT marketplace or something like that. Which would have also been nice, but I think is very different from what we've actually done. And then, we went into this direction, and then we very quickly realized, okay, NFTs are really great, but we want to go into this real world utility kind of direction, and like we want to see NFTs for what they could be, right? And then we realized, okay, some, like maybe we're too early, maybe the hype for these real world use cases not there yet. Maybe there shouldn't be any hype. Maybe they should be just in the background. But it became very difficult to sustain because we built a business on the hyped projects. We got like so many ape picture projects and whatnot. And we wanted to go into this real world direction, but we couldn't. So we kind of had to make a few decisions. And then obviously now we're going more into a completely different direction with AI and Masumi. I think we're going to talk about that in a second. But I think there were a lot of these like defining moments where you really just have to think about what you're actually doing and who you're actually building for and who your current target audience is, and then who the target audience is that you want to have in the future. And often they don't align. So
that's true. It's important to always understand you may need to pivot, right? Yes. You pivot to what the market demand is. You pivot to the clientele that you've established. Absolutely. I think that's a great lesson to learn. Obviously, there's a large age gap between you and I wish I had learned that lesson earlier. It sounds like
I just started very, very early, It was very lucky.
Good job. So, right on. Well, you mentioned AI. Let's dive into that. So in regards to NMKR's Masumi Network, right? Building secure and compliant AI agents on Cardano. What challenges do AI agents face in this enterprise environment, and how does blockchain address that?
So there's a lot of challenges in AI and enterprise. If you talk to a lot of these enterprise customers, or in general enterprises, especially in Europe, I think in Europe it's a very different experience from the US, but especially in Europe, it's like they're all scared. First of all, like the first reaction is not excitement; it's to be scared, and then they have specific rules sometimes about which AI projects you can use, which LLMs you can use. All the companies are afraid of giving their data to OpenAI and to like Gemini and to all the American tech companies, but they're even more afraid of giving it to DeepSeek. So it is very, very tricky for people at these enterprises to even use AI. And I think that's just something that we're observing right now, but luckily there's also more like open source stuff that can be hosted on your own servers nowadays, which is great. But also for us, the main challenge that we've seen is really this like communication between AI agents across different companies, and that's really what we're focused on. Like I always have this like boring example that everyone kind of brings, but it's a good example, because what if you have an agent from booking.com, and then you have an agent from Lufthansa, and you have an agent from, I don't know, Sheraton, and the booking.com agent has to interact with all of them and like book flights and basically manage all that, and also pay for those flights, of course, like send money. What if one of those agents does a mistake? How do you know which one? How do you verify that? How do you send the money? How do you verify that the booking.com agent is actually from booking.com and not from like a scammer? And these are all challenges which are relatively difficult to solve, and have all been solved before using the blockchain. Like these are, for us as blockchain natives, these are like not unfamiliar. Decentralized identity, we know that, we know how it works. We know how transactions, of course, work. We have stable coins, we have wallets, we have all those things. We have smart contracts to basically only send money when certain conditions are met. Like, for example, the job of the AI agent has actually been done, and we can use the blockchain to lock certain actions of the agents also and create like this immutable trail. So all of these things have already been solved. We just need to apply them on AI agents, and that's what we're doing with Masumi. And I think there's only two possible futures right now with AI agents. I believe we're going into a world where there will be billions of agents, and they all interact with each other all the time. I truly believe that. And there's either the future where we have the coordination and the payments and all this kind of stuff that I just talked about of these agents through a centralized marketplace somewhere, the Apple App Store of AI agents, only that it's going to be like 100 times or 1,000 times bigger than the Apple App Store, because agents have like a much bigger market opportunity. And it's going to be very scary if we get to that point, because then we have this huge market that everyone is relying on, that has like an insane network effect, and it's in the control of like one tech company basically, which is not what we want. Like, we don't want the entire AI workforce of the future to go through this like centralized marketplace. And the second solution, which I think is way more attractive, is if we build a decentralized network which belongs to everyone, all the same rules for everyone, and anyone can participate, right? And that's what we're trying to facilitate here with Masumi.
I totally get that. I've had people who know a bit about Masumi and know a bit about HyperCycle have indicated to me that they believe that we are competitors with each other. And as I see it, the truth of the matter is I think that's 100% wrong. I think that what I see with Masumi and with HyperCycle are collaborators, right?
I agree. Yeah.
We 100% agree that decentralized AI is in the best interest of humanity, right?
100%. Yeah.
And that various governance protocols, various elements of distribution, like one of the big parts of the HyperCycle ethos is not just that software should be decentralized, but that actual sovereignty and hardware should be decentralized, and hence why we developed Hyper Appliance to bring a decentralized physical infrastructure product to the market where these protocols could live outside of the silos in the warehouses of AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, what have you. And so one of the things this has never been spoken aloud before, but as my role in Hyper Appliance, I am considering what it's going to take to put together what I call the Masumi home portal. And that is a device that Masumi Network participants can have in their home and help contribute physical decentralized infrastructure to this incredible decentralized software network that is developing, and how that can work with HyperCycle, not opposed, not against, not in opposition to. And so bringing a like-minded people together is one of the incredible functions of my role with both of those companies, HyperCycle and Hyper Appliance. And so having you on today is kind of special for me, right? Because I get to talk to somebody who's in the trenches doing exactly what we're doing with a slightly different use case, a slightly different model, but one that is still very much 100% collaborative. And how wonderful is that, right? That we can work together with various companies, because there's so much wealth creation that we know is going to occur through the computation explosion, right? All of us need electricity running through chips powering software. And the need for that is only going to grow exponentially as we get these billions of agents, as we get robots, as we get autonomous cars, as we get all of these computational heavy industries continue to mature. We're going to need all of us to satisfy that demand, right? We are going to bring the supply to the network to meet this demand. So, yay! Right? That we get to kind of do this together. So I'm looking forward to more of this.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think, my ethos in business in general has always been very different, I think, from many other companies out there. And I think that's also what partially draws me personally to blockchain, because I truly think that collaboration is always key, and that you can build better businesses if you collaborate with people. And I think that, obviously in Web 2, this might be a little bit different, and there's like really monopolies out there that like suppress their competitors and stuff like that. But in Web 3, the world just works a little bit differently, because we have different values. We really want to not only have a successful business, but also have a positive impact on the world, and build systems that scale and contribute in a positive way just from their design at the core, right? Yeah. And like, no matter, nowadays looking at Cardano, no matter what happens to the Cardano Foundation or IOG or Emergo and so on, Cardano is there, and Cardano is built in a way where it will survive all of them. And I think that's very beautiful, actually. So I'm always looking forward to collaborate. And I like coming back to HyperCycle and Masumi, I see HyperCycle almost as like a layer below Masumi, because there's no reason that, more decentralized AI solutions, and also especially like the hardware part, I think is really interesting, cannot run on Masumi. We're not building LLMs. We're not building any hardware. We are not building the agents even. We're just building the connection between the agents. We're just building the payment infrastructure, and we're building a marketplace, and that's it. And I think that anything should be able to plug into that. And even when it comes to LLMs, or like, I don't know, AI agent frameworks, multi-agent frameworks and so on, there's so many out there, and there's so many standards out there. Like, we are the small fish, and the only way we can be successful is if we adapt to everything else and keep it open enough for people to say, okay, I want to use, for example, Google's new A2A protocol, and I want to plug it into Masumi because Masumi enables me to monetize it, right? And maybe I want to run the agent that is now plugged into Masumi using A2A on like a HyperCycle node, right? So there's a lot of opportunities there, and realistically, like, what's being spent on AI right now in a month is probably bigger than what has been spent in all of crypto, So I think, yeah.
Absolutely. Let's geek out for a minute or two. And I'll tell you, I'll start. There are some use cases that are, to me, absolutely mind-boggling in their potential, right? It is so clear to see, and that is this entire sharing economy transitioning from what we know today being like the Ubers, right? I'm not using my car. I plug into the Uber network. I can monetize that asset for as long as I want. I can plug into the network and plug out of the network at will. Okay, great. It's all based on my desire and time. The same with Airbnb. The same with, there are these other elements, right? Well, when I look at compute and I see that the digital transformation that started with things like physical maps becoming digital things on our phones, books becoming digital files, music going from actual CDs and cassettes to actual digital files, to this whole new industrial wave of information protocols, procedures, and directives for, like I said, automated, autonomous cars, robots, AI, etc. I think here we go. When we look at what it's going to take to power that, and we know that it's no longer the old model of building a football field long data center is no longer viable for several reasons. The two biggest being the cost and the impact that it has on any one particular infrastructure grid. So any one particular electrical grid in today's world cannot take a new hyperscaling data center. Right? You'd have to find an energy source away from a city 500 miles or so that truly can provide you the kind of power to power a hyperscaling data center. And those are few and far between. So what does that mean? Well, the most coolest thing to me is it means you and I and everybody like us can start monetizing our own electricity in this new world. We can buy a device, plug into a network, and provide compute to it. So one of the things that's got me most excited is in hyper appliance, people being able to take a hyper appliance or their own bare metal computer, use a little bit of our software, and we can provide compute to a Cardano stake pool operator. So a Cardano stake pool operator who's validating and securing the Cardano ecosystem, and thank God they are, most of them are signing a check to AWS or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, DigitalOcean, you name the big data center. Well, you and I both know those big data centers are not decentralized. Matter of fact, they're very centralized. And wouldn't it be cool to just with a couple of clicks of a mouse be able to find Patrick's hyper appliance Cardano home portal and have you run my stake pool for me at a fraction of what it costs, because AWS has got different overhead than me, right? Or buy the box myself, and now all of a sudden this decentralized validation software that I've been running, I can actually host it from my home with a Starlink internet connection and a battery backup.
Right.
Wow. And what if I scale that up a little bit where I can provide for myself, but also a little bit extra for you? What about the developers out there that their grants run out with AWS or Google Cloud or what have you? Now they got to start paying money for the compute they use.
And it's not cheap.
Wouldn't it be cool to find
expensive.
A decentralized network of people, maybe that are in the same ecosystem as you, that have the same philosophy as you? That wouldn't it be a lot better to spend your dollar within the ecosystem than outside of it? How many more levels of beneficiality come from when I spend $1 in the ecosystem versus the dollar that gets spent to AWS? AWS is never going to put $1 into Cardano ever, right? So those are just some of the things. I'd love to geek out with you. What are some of the cool little widgets and things that you're seeing that have you really excited about the direction of where this is going?
that's a good question. I'm a software guy. I'm not so much a hardware guy. I never really personally got into deep in too much. I like the philosophy, but I don't run anything, right? I have like a Raspberry Pi somewhere, so but that's it basically. And because of that, I think I geek out more about the software and the actual AI appliances rather than the network so much. But for me, I just really like the idea of having, like equipping agents with wallets and giving them the power to do something on chain. Like I really just think about, okay, it's such a brilliant move because it's so obvious. Of course, agents aren't going to use credit cards to do transactions, right? That's so antiquated. We have stable coins, we have wallets, we can generate those wallets on the fly, we can just do all this stuff. So why not just give every agent out there a wallet and then see what happens when you have agents that just do like small little things, and they can use this decentralized network to find other agents and then hire those other agents and then work together. And then that way, you can solve problems that you don't even know exist yet, basically. And you can solve it in completely unique ways because you don't have to decide. I don't have to decide that I'm going to use this agent and that agent and that agent. I'm just going to tell them what I want, and then they're going to solve it in the background by hiring the right agent, finding the right agents, and so on, and instructing them in the right way as well. So yeah, that's what I really like. And obviously I love the idea of building that on like solid foundation, decentralized foundation like Cardano. And I love the idea of having the Cardano network secured by different decentralized node operators and not so much by some data centers. I think it will be very difficult to replace all of the LLMs. I think that's not really what's going to happen. I mean, there's just too much power there. But having an alternative to that is very important. Like what I see right now a lot is, again, coming back to the whole Europe topic, and like all the Europeans don't want to work with American tech companies and so on. Everyone in Europe right now is self-hosting their Mistral models because they're open source and you can just self-host them, you can train them yourself. So why not just self-host them and then use them when you need to use them? But when you don't need to use them, you can just actually share this and sell it to other people. And I do like this like core philosophy a lot. So yeah.
I'm also a big fan, right? The more sovereignty, whether you're a human, whether you're an individual or a business or a municipality, right? I mean, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Data security is a real thing, and I think the world is becoming more and more attuned to it. They're seeing the need for more and more sophistication in that. I mean, we see it every day with the scams, right? With the way people are being tricked out of their assets and their livelihoods, their savings and things of that nature. And it's really horrible. At some point, I really believe the promise of AI is a much safer communal existence. Right. At least, that's what I want to. I want to believe in that. So
I'm not fully convinced by that. I'm just scared of the day when an AI agent is gonna call my grandma and like have my face as a deep fake and like my voice and all that stuff, and then my grandma is just gonna think it's me and send him money.
Yeah, but hopefully your grandma has the cool robot that will say this is not Patrick. Yeah. This is not Patrick. Sorry, you cannot.
I mean, it's always grandma. A weapon and a defense mechanism.
I'm the gatekeeper, right? Yeah. I think that we will build more sophisticated gatekeepers, and they will be employed in the areas that it's commercially viable to deploy them, right? And then there are the ones that maybe aren't so commercially viable but are morally important, and people like you and I will take time out of our normal lives and we'll create them. and
Yeah.
provide them, right? There's always that element of the industry, and thank goodness. Thank goodness. I
Yes.
know those guys at Linux, they don't make a lot of money, but I'm sure glad they're there and they did what they did.
100%. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Let's jump in. Let's do some forward. Let's look forward a little bit here. So, how do you envision the relationship between human users and autonomous AI agents evolving as the technologies become more integrated into daily business practices?
Yeah, I think that's the really big question, honestly, which is very hard to answer because, it could be that humans get completely replaced by AI in most areas. It could also be that humans just operate a swarm of agents for themselves, and like everyone has, 100 small employees basically that they operate. It could be that agents just become like supportive helpers and give you guidance and counseling and like like advise you on certain topics and stuff like that. And I think that it would be tricky to say any one of those directions is going to win, because in the end it's always a mix of everything. So I think it will go into all of these directions. And and there's this like chess player, Garry Kasparov, who's like the best chess player of all time, and he said this really interesting thing, and he didn't even say it like last year, so he said it like 15 years ago, because he's the guy who lost against what was it called, like Deep Blue, I think is the name of like the chess computer that beat him and so on, first chess computer that won against the best player in the world. And the thing that he said is that chess computers nowadays always beat humans, but chess computers are still getting beat by chess computers that have the support of another human. So like the human and with like the chess computer doing the actual work, and then the human giving input whenever there's like obvious big mistakes or like strategy decisions and so on, will always be better than the regular chess computer. And that's actually what has been happening, right? And there's a lot of tests into that direction. So I think it will be a similar situation where basically you can't just let AI run on its own. It's not going to be perfect, but basically if you have a human sitting next to it and like advising it and guiding it, or the other way around potentially, the results will be very good. So yeah, that's kind of what I expect.
I have to agree. Again, back to maybe it's my bias that I want to believe in, but I honestly want to believe and see a tremendous amount of substantiation in that AI will be working with us, right? Yeah. And totally replacing us, I don't see that. I don't see that. I think there are too many ways for us to implement safeguards around that. I think there will be processes that are completely automated and performed by AI, but I think there will, at the end of the day, AI is code, and as long as we continue to code our safeguards, we can code in our very, the necessity for us. Right.
Yes.
And so that's my hope. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I want to just give you an opportunity to comment freely on anything that you would like to, whether it's pertaining to something that's already been spoken of in this interview, or just something that was on your mind that you would really like to share with the world who's going to be tuning in to watch this.
I feel like we covered so many topics. I don't even know what to say anymore. So yeah, honestly, I don't really have anything right now. I just think maybe because I was having a conversation about this earlier, I think that a lot of people are too scared of AI right now. Many people in the world are very scared of it, and I think that's the wrong approach. Like, you should be embracing it. The only way to actually grow with it is if you embrace it. And of course, you're gonna get replaced by AI if you don't use AI. So use it and become an expert and like figure out how to do your job better with AI, and then you don't have to be scared of it anymore. And that's kind of like my main message, maybe.
I think it's a good message. think it's important to realize that men and women, human beings, have always been scared of what they don't understand.
Yes.
It was no different when fire became part of our existence. It was no different than when electricity became part of our existence, or when oil was refined to gasoline and started preparing the Industrial Revolution. Same with the internet. Most people back in the late 80s had no comprehension of what this was going to become or how to do it. And there were a lot of fears around it. I can remember distinctly half the world thought the entire digital world was going to end at the year 2000.
I don't remember, but I heard stories.
I distinctly remember that. I was an adult living my best life at that point. So, yes, it's completely normal for all of us to be leery, skeptical. Time out. Edit this. It's completely normal for all of us to be skeptical of things that we don't understand. And so I think Patrick's message and my message are really clear. Lean in, try to understand it. Remember, AI is like people. They're all different. We all use AI with spell correct when we're using text messages, when we're using Google Sheets and Google Word and Microsoft Excel. All of the AI that's in there is simple AI, but it's AI nonetheless. And so you're already using it. Just start to learn and understand it a little bit more, and it won't be so scary in the future. Anyway, from Patrick and Jerry, we want to wish you an incredible day, and thank you for tuning in to Innovators, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.
Ciao.
So that was the show for today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. And like always, we'd like to encourage you to not only like, but subscribe to the channel for future content. See you next time.